A hush falls over the crowd. A single spotlight cuts through the dark auditorium, revealing the young man standing center stage, his hands shaking, his breath shallow, his eyes staring straight at the king of rock and roll himself. Every witness in that room would later say the same thing. They knew something extraordinary was about to happen, but none of them, not even Elvis, had any idea just how unbelievable the next few seconds would be, because this moment, the one that would soon spread across newspapers, radios, and whispered conversations in diners across the South, didn't begin with courage or talent or destiny. It began with a joke that went way too far, a joke that changed a life. And before you hear what happened next, before the world flipped upside down for a small-town mechanic named Tommy Hale, you need to know how he ended up standing on a stage he never meant to touch. Tommy wasn't a rebel. He wasn't a dreamer, and unlike millions of his generation, he wasn't even an Elvis fan. He respected the man. Of course, everyone did, but music wasn't really his world. Engines were motors, gears, grease on his hands, and long days under the Tennessee sun. His life was predictable, quiet, ordinary. That's why his friends dragged him to the concert. They insisted he needed a night out, a break from the same routine. The same shop, the same worn-down apartment. They bought the tickets months earlier, saved up, planned the trip like a pilgrimage. And when the night arrived, Tommy reluctantly joined, more out of loyalty than excitement. The arena was electric lights flashing, crowds screaming, every seat shaking with anticipation. Elvis hadn't even walked out yet, and the building felt like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Tommy shrugged. Yeah, he's good, he admitted to his friends. But he's just a guy. I bet I could go up there, wiggle my hips a bit, and nobody would know the difference. His friends froze. Then they burst into laughter loud. Enough to turn heads. You challenge Elvis. One of them choked out. Man, you can barely sing in tune with the radio. You'd lose your job, your dignity, and probably your voice. Tommy rolled his eyes. Come on, I'm kidding. But the words stuck. Because when you hurl a joke into the universe, especially in the presence of alcohol, adrenaline, and a crowd of thousands, sometimes the joke spins around and comes back to bite you minutes later. When Elvis stepped on stage in his shimmering suit and the crowd erupted like a bomb exploding, Tommy's friend Rico made a decision fueled entirely by mischief. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted toward the stage, "Hey, Elvis, my buddy thinks he can out-sing you." A few people laughed, then more people turned. Then a spotlight swung across the crowd, searching. Elvis tilted his head, smirked, and spoke into the microphone. Is that right? Tommy felt his stomach drop. Rico pointed directly at him. There he is, right there. The spotlight caught Tommy like a deer in headlights. The crowd roared. Some of them cheered, some of them booed playfully. But all of them pointed, nudged, whispered. Elvis chuckled. Well, now we can't ignore a challenge, can we? The audience exploded again. Tommy shook his head violently. No, nope. Not me, absolutely not, but the crowd wanted blood. Or at least entertainment. And Elvis, the consummate performer, loved a good moment. You got the guts to come on up here, he asked. Tommy's friends pushed him, lifting him from behind. People along the aisle urged him forward, shouting encouragement, laughter, disbelief. Tommy tried to retreat, but momentum, literal and social, dragged him toward destiny. By the time he reached the stage steps, his heart pounded so hard he could barely hear anything else. A security guard helped him up. Elvis held out a hand. Tommy hesitated, then accepted it. The crowd chanted, "Elvis, Elvis, Elvis," but mixed into the noise. A few people shouted his name, too. Go Tommy, let him try, give the kid a chance. They thought this was a joke, a spectacle, a brief moment of embarrassment before Elvis sent him back into the shadows of the crowd. But fate had something else in mind. Elvis looked Tommy up and down, amused but curious. You really think you can sing like me? Tommy swallowed. No, sir, I was joking. That's so, Elvis grinned. Well, we like jokes around here. The band chuckled behind their instruments. Elvis turned to the audience. "Should we let him try a line?" The response was volcanic. Tommy wanted the floor to swallow him whole. But Elvis clapped a hand on his shoulder. A surprisingly gentle, reassuring gesture. "Don't worry, son, just have fun." The band started playing the soft opening chords of "Can't Help Falling in Love." Tommy's heart nearly stopped. He barely knew the lyrics. He had never sung in front of more than 2 people in his life. Elvis nodded at him whenever you're ready. The microphone waited. The arena waited. The world seemed to hold its breath. Tommy closed his eyes. And then something impossible happened. From somewhere deep inside him, from a place he didn't know existed, a voice came out. A voice steady, warm, rich, not Elvis. Not a copy, but undeniably good shock rippled through the crowd. Even the band members lifted their eyebrows. Elvis froze. When Tommy opened his eyes, Elvis was staring at him. Not with amusement, but with something like, "Ah." "Son," Elvis whispered, leaning close. "You've been hiding that voice from the world." Tommy shook his head. "I didn't know I had it." "Sing another line," Elvis said. So Tommy did, and it was even better. The audience fell silent, not because they were unimpressed, but because they were stunned. By the end of the verse, people were on their feet. Some cheering, some screaming, some crying. Nobody expected this. Nobody could have predicted that a random nobody from Tennessee would outshine every opening act Elvis had ever hired. Elvis lifted Tommy's hand into the air like a champion. You hear that he said to the crowd, "This man's got a gift." The applause was deafening, but Elvis didn't stop there. He motioned to the band to cut the music. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elvis announced, "I think we just found Jackson. Tennessee's best kept secret." Tommy's face went red. He waved his hands. No, I'm not." But the crowd disagreed. They shouted his name now. "Tom, my Tom, my Tom, my," and Elvis leaned in again. "You want to finish the song with me?" Tommy couldn't breathe, but he nodded. The band restarted. 2 voices, one legendary, one unknown, wove together in a harmony so unexpected, so natural, so perfect that people later claimed it felt historical, as if a new chapter in music was being written right in front of them. When the final note ended, the audience erupted with a force that rattled the rafters. Elvis hugged him. "You got something special, kid. Don't waste it." And then, just before Tommy left the stage, Elvis said one last thing that would change his life forever. "You think that was a joke? Son, that was destiny knocking." Word spread fast by the next morning. Newspapers picked up the story. Local mechanic stuns arena during Elvis show. Elvis shares spotlight with mystery singer. UHO is Tommy Hale. Radio hosts replayed eyewitness accounts. People called in, saying they'd never heard anything like it within days. Record labels searched for him. Agents offered contracts, producers wanted auditions. Tommy, who had walked into a concert as a nobody, was suddenly in the middle of a spotlight. He never saw it. He didn't know how to process it. He wasn't chasing fame. He wasn't dreaming of stages or lights or screaming crowds, but life doesn't always ask permission before it changes. A week later, Elvis himself sent a letter, a handwritten note inviting Tommy to visit Graceland. They spent an entire afternoon together talking, singing, laughing, exchanging stories about life and fate and unexpected paths. Elvis told Tommy the truth. "When you sang, I heard something honest. Something real, and real is rare, son. You can do whatever you want with that voice. But if you choose music, the world's gonna listen." Tommy thought about it long and hard for days. And then he made his decision. He returned to his small-town mechanic shop and kept working. He didn't sign the contracts. He didn't chase the fame. He didn't pursue the spotlight. Because for Tommy, the miracle wasn't the opportunity. It was the fact that he had one unforgettable moment. One night when he stood on stage with the king and held his own, the story spread for decades. People debated it. Some wondered if it was exaggerated. Others swore by every detail. But those who were in the arena that night, those who saw the look on Elvis's face, Those who heard the voice of a man who never knew he had one, they never forgot. And the most astonishing part, Tommy never returned to the stage, not once. He lived a quiet life, a humble life, but one filled with a secret glow. The knowledge that for one incredible night, a simple joke turned into the shock of a lifetime. And in the end, he always said the same thing to anyone who asked. What happened next? I learned that sometimes the biggest moments in life aren't the ones you chase. They're the ones that chase you.